Hi there, and thanks for tuning in. We're going to be going through the residential tenancy agreement. So we're just going to go through it step by step so that you have a clear understanding of what this agreement and what kind of agreement we're getting into between you and the owner. So the owner's name is right here. If there's one owner or two owners, you put the names right there, and whoever the agent is, if that's a caretaker, or just put the caretaker's name right there, who is ever filling out this document. Next, what you do is you put your name there of each tenant, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put the address right over here. And then right over here, these are the terms of the agreement. So basically what this is saying right here is that unless earlier terminated in accordance with the provisions of this agreement or with the express written consent with the landlord. Now you got to make sure if you're giving notice to leave that it's always done before the beginning of the month. Otherwise, you're actually legally bound to stay there for an extra month, or you will lose your damage deposit. So make sure you understand that. So this agreement shall be for a fixed term commencing 12 o'clock noon on the day, whatever day, if it's the 1st, the 15th, the 10th, and whatever month, and then the year ending at however long the term is. And typically 6 to 1 year leases is preferable. We also have month-to-month leases, and that is up to the owner or the landlord to decide, whoever's name is up top here as representing the owner or as one of the owners. Next, what you have is you have the tenant shall pay monthly in advance by way of post-dated check, certified check, money order, email transfer. Email transfers are the best. You just pay by email transfer. Those are easy to set up, easy to track. It gives you a receipt. Put in your file every single month and you're done. And give that to your tax people. Pre-authorized payment only by to the landlord and in the landlord's name. Do not give any cash for the way of whatever amount that is per month. Once or before the first day of each month. And so there is a $50 fine if you are actually have a late rent. So please don't be late with your rent. Just get it done on time. And if it is late, we give a 3-day kind of grace period, although that grace period is only to be used once. That's only a one-time deal. Other than that, if you're late, it's $50 extra every single time, and it's going to be important for you to understand that. In the event that any rent amount is not paid or due, what we're going to do is, if you're late with your rent, we're going to ask you to pay a full month up in advance. So after you're 3 days late, we're going to ask you to pay 1 month up in advance to make sure that you are not late again for your rent. So it's just like any other place that you're going to be going and getting credit from. We trust you, but you got to keep that trust. Utilities. So rentals rates prescribed does not include, or actually does include cost of strata, because we do actually pay strata, cost of the hot water utilities, the natural gas, the water, and it does include the sewer. Electrical services to the premises are not included because you have to pay. You have to actually pay your own electricity, and then which shall be obtained through the obligation of the tenant. And then right here, you'll pay the deposit appropriate to the utility provider, and you will make sure that everything is paid appropriately. If you breach that agreement, there is a right through this to actually go to small claims court and go to tenancy, and then it hurts your credit, and it's not worthwhile doing that. It's worthwhile just to be a good tenant and work with us. So the tenant agrees to pay on demand to the appropriate authorities, the landlord, for those services billed directly to the landlord by the appropriate authority. So in your rent, what you actually have is you have a condo fee, and that condo fee actually goes to pay for the cleaning, it goes to pay for the caretaker, it goes to pay for some of the maintenance around the common areas like the drop ceilings, or it goes to pay for new boilers, or all these kind of things. So know that what your money is actually going to help out. We also ask you to make sure you keep the place clean. It's extremely important that you keep it clean. You are liable for all damages. So the landlord and the tenant agree that the premises may be occupied by the tenant and their children unless the landlord consents in writing to occupation of the premises by some other additional parties. You're not allowed to have people stay there that are not approved. You can be evicted for that. You can lose your damage deposit for that. So security. The agreement to pay the landlord security deposit of, that's how much the deposit is and what's going to have, and that's the date. And you need to have a receipt, and that receipt must be sent to the landlord showing that you've actually, the receipt has been sent either by you or the caretaker. I would do both. Landlord may deduct the security deposit any amount that the landlord deems necessary to provide for. Please take pictures of the move-in and send them to the landlord, and then keep them in your files. Let's make a small correction right there. So with that damage deposit, you're going to be able to repair any of the damage that is done. Please read this. Repair any damages to the premise, including the building of which the premises is a part, the property for which the building is located, fixtures, furniture, appliances, and any other items pursuant to this agreement. So we're going to make sure that we got to make sure that you're not taking blame for your next door neighbor that has done damage. You need to let us know how that's happened. Send in a handyman request form. Let the board know. Please, you are our eyes and ears. Let us know what's happening in your units or around. If we're not there, you can help us. So watch for any damage that has been caused by tenant or any other person. It means basically you are responsible for every people and all the damage that is done. So cleaning of the premises, including cleaning of the drapes and carpets, if the tenant gives up possession of the premises in such a condition that the premises requires cleaning, normal wear and tear is acceptable, or expected, I should say. So payment of rent and or other utilities owing to the landlord by the tenant, that will be taken off the damage deposit. The discharge of any other obligations, in the event of the quorum of monies required to be compensated to the landlord for damages in reference to the paragraph 8 above exceeds the amount of the security. So this is basically saying that we can go and get a judgment against you and all your belongings pretty much for the next 15 years. So this is actually very serious business. We need you to understand this is a legal agreement, and that you're just renting, and if you're a good person, you're going to have no issues with this. So we're encouraging good people to come and be with us. So you have to get insurance. It's important for you to have insurance on your property to cover any damage that is done by yourself or your tenants, and you have to have please provide us with a copy of the insurance, and you're going to sign initial that. If you have no insurance, you understand that you are liable for everything that may happen, and that can be costly. So please, it's worthwhile just getting a $30 or $20 or $15 a month insurance for yourself. We do our best to make sure everything is done well. So unless otherwise agreed to, the landlord and the tenants agrees to pay to the tenant interest on the security deposit, if there's any interest, that is. Inspections are agreed to be done on the premises within 1 week after you've taken possession of the premises, and within 1 week before after you surrender the premises. So everything must be done accordingly with move-in and move-out inspections. The landlord agrees to provide the tenant in each instance the report of the inspection describes the condition of the premises. The landlord may complete the inspection without the tenant if an adult person who falls within the definition of the term tenant, as the term tenant is defined in the Residential Tenancy Act, has refused to take part in 2 inspection suggestions by the landlord and that have taken place in different days, on different days or not holidays between 8 and 8 p.m. So there is instances where you're going to have to just assume that the damage done is, or that if something happened, then it was missed for some unknown factor, you can't get to it, then you have to assume with the pictures. That's why we take pictures before and after, and you should take pictures before and after if you're a tenant. You got to cover yourself as well. This may not be the only place that you're going to rent sometime in the future. Maybe you're going to want to own and rent. Let this be kind of an outline for you. The tenant agrees to take good care of the premises and keep them in a reasonable, clean condition. Take good care of any items supplied to the tenant and the landlord pursuant to clause number 6. So, or a clause above, let's just say. So the tenant shall be responsible for the cost of repairing plugged toilets, sinks, and drains, and the cost of all damage resulting directly or indirectly therefrom. The cost of replacing light bulbs, the cost of replacing or repairing all windows, screens, and doors, appliances, and fixtures damaged, broken, removed, or destroyed at any time during the tenancy, whether by the tenant or by any other person or persons invited to the premises by the tenant. The cost for cleaning, repairing, and replacing soiled, stained, and damaged floor coverings, countertops, and drapes. That includes the hallways. If you've got mud on your boots, make sure you go and you knock your boots off because our floors are cleaned. We do everything we can to make sure they're clean. We will track the mud to your unit and you will be charged. Please. These are just simple little housekeeping tips to keep the place clean for everyone. So it's everyone's common area is the hallways. So the cost of any other repairs or replacement to the premises or the common property of the premises due to the tenant neglectful or willful damage by the tenant or the guests. We have a responsibility, and so do you. Tenants Insurance, you will be responsible for getting your own insurance. So they insure the tenant's property and the premises against damage and loss, so that basically, if something is done, that you know that if something is happening, you are responsible for it. It's your responsibility. The tenant hereby waives and releases the landlord from any liability or damage or loss of any persons or properties with occurrence to the connection of the premises and the building and the facilities, grounds or parking lot. The landlord shall not be responsible for any loss of the tenant's property to the premises or stored in the building. The landlord is not responsible for damages, inconvenience, or any other costs due to inspection or infestation. And we're not responsible for fumigation as well. The tenant hereby indemnifies and saves harmless the landlord and all the related or any and all loss damage caused by the tenants or guests or the invitees through neglect, misuse, or carelessness of the tenant. And the tenant shall indemnify and save harmless the landlord from and from all occasions, cause of action or claim of damage, injury, any other nature, kind, or description whatsoever arising out or in connection with the tenant's occupancy of the premises or the facilities, parking areas, and the grounds located in, upon, or associated with the premises. So I'm sorry, guys, that I have to read this, but it is our obligation to make sure that you understand that, and you've gone through this agreement. And with the landlord or the caretaker, you can watch this and kind of go through it, read it yourself. But this right here is proof and evidence that I have given this to you and that you should know it, that everything needs to be done correctly. The tenant shall have the right to assign. The tenant shall not have a right to assign. I'm sorry. You shall not have a right to assign or sublet the premises to another person or persons with written... you have to get written permission. So yeah, you shall have the right with written permission from the landlord. You are not allowed to assign or sublet. So abandonment. So should the tenant fail to in the proceeds, so if you abandon, it's going to be 1 full month's rent if you abandon the property. And so please don't abandon the property and give us proper notice so we can do the proper things and get everything cleaned up. Rules and regulations, you will follow all the rules and regulations of the condo board. It's important that we all follow rules and regulations. It doesn't matter if you're living in a house, in a community, there are rules and regulations we all have to follow. It's called a common law. And so this is a common law so we can all get together. You want to promote the comfort, safety, and welfare of the tenants and the family and the guests of the tenants and other tenants in the building, of which our premises form a part. We're working together. You want to preserve the landlord's property from abusive use, and promote the care and cleanliness of the premises, the building the premises from which you are part. And so if you see something needs to be done, like a window closed, or if you see it's raining, close your windows. You got to make sure that this is not a place where you can just think that you can get away with something. No, this is a place where you will be held accountable, and you're a good tenant, and we're good landlords. We want to make sure everything is kept well for you. So liabilities for rents. When 2 or more persons comprise the tenancy for the purpose of this agreement, the landlord may collect the rent due and utilities charged to the landlord pursuant to this agreement from any of them. So basically, if 2 people are paying, great, but you guys need to show the evidence of damage deposits. So every tenant must have the damage deposit proof. Next, quiet enjoyment. Everyone has a right to the quiet enjoyment of the exercise of this agreement. So the landlord acknowledges that in the exercise of this agreement, the landlord exercises the landlord's lawful power, and in so executing and subject to the terms of this agreement, grants the tenants right to the full use of and occupation of a peace enjoyment and premises, and with a security of tenure. So you get to stay there. You get to stay there as long as you're making your payments. You get to enjoy it. It's great. Maybe what'll happen is maybe you want to buy the unit that you're in right now. You'll like it. We're doing a good job. Maybe you want to learn how all this works. Real estate is one of the best investments over time. And what's great is that these places can be rented. So let's say you rent this, let's say you buy it, you move somewhere else, you can still rent it out. It's a great idea. So next, right of entry. Except as otherwise permitted in paragraph 19, the landlord shall not enter the premises without the consent of the tenant or any adult person lawfully of the premises, or of any other. Gee whiz, my brain is just not working right now. So anyway, it's basically saying we're going to give you proper notice. Make sure that you understand that we're going to give you proper notice of a 24 hours notice, and please adhere. And make sure that your keys are up to date with the landlord. We do keep everything locked up, and make sure that we have an emergency key. The provisions of this lease may be suspended or terminated at any time by the landlord should any event such as suspension or termination advisable be considered from the perspective of the landlord, including without terminating the general foregoing damage to the premises. Basically, we want to make sure not only the damage of the premises, but we want to make sure that you're not doing any drugs, unlawful drugs, damage to the premises and foregoing the part of the pen. No use of unlawful drugs in unit. That's very important. No use of unlawful drugs in unit. Otherwise, we're going to have to evict you. You're out and you lose it. And we're going to have to let the cops know too. So that's no good for you. Don't do it. Even the smell of something illegal can be traced to you, and we will have to report that. So it's best just not to do it on the premises, and just to be a healthy person, and leave it like that. So the tenant shall use the premises for residential purposes only. You'll not be allowed to use it for any illegal or immoral purposes. Then compliance with the law, the tenant shall comply with the health, fire, and other regulations and requirements of the complement of competent authorities. Tenant's copy of agreement. So you're going to get a copy of the agreement within 21 days, and this should be sent to us by the caretaker as soon as it's done. Binding effects, landlord's address. So this right here would be the landlord's address. Typically that could be the caretaker's address, but the landlord's address can also go there, and you should be sending your post-dated checks there. Should be a communication between you and the owner. Headings and conflicts. And then what you do is you sign this here, and then what we have is we have our maintenance. So rules and regulations, safety, consideration, and then what I would like for you to do is I'd like for you to initial each and every single one of these pages, and we'll make sure we put an initial on the bottom there so you understand that you have read this agreement and are able to comply with it. And thank you very much for listening to me going through this agreement. You only have to listen to it once, and then you kind of understand what to do. I appreciate it. Take care.